to engage the Western Balkan region in cooperation with Eureka. And so we are here to present, to introduce what has been accomplished by the work that has been done, the activities that have been developed within this working group, and also looking forward to the future, introducing a bit later on some new lines of action to promote and improve cooperation on research and innovation within the region and with the remaining countries of Eureka. So I leave the stage to Ines Marinkovic. She's my colleague, co-chair of the working group, but she was actually the one who launched the working group. I leave the floor to her to introduce our first speakers. And so please, Ines.
Thank you very much, Rita. I hope this is working now. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. As Rita just presented, we are working on this topic now for 2 years. We have started with some information collection, then we had some strategy development, then we go into the implementation phase, and the best thing about working together in a working group is the cooperation. And that's also what we would like to present here today. We have European Commission, DG Research and Innovation. We have a colleague from Regional Cooperation Council. We have a colleague from COST. We are from Eureka. So what we are trying to do together is to exchange and jointly to discuss and implement some activities in the region. So briefly to the framework. Now I would like to go further and to present my first two speakers. Ruta Czarnoskaite, who is head of unit, Horizon Europe Association, DG Research and Innovation. She is leading a team in charge of negotiations and implementation of agreements with third countries associating to the Horizon Europe program. So, Ruta, the EU developed just recently with the Western Balkans jointly a forward-looking agenda on innovation, research, education, culture, youth and sport. And this agenda outlines a comprehensive long-term strategy for cooperation with the region. So could you please elaborate for the people not really knowing what's the Western Balkan agenda all about a little bit, and of course particularly focusing research and innovation?
Thank you very much and good afternoon everybody. Best regards to those who are in Portugal. I wish I were there, but perhaps next time. Nevertheless, I hope we have a good exchange here, and thank you, Ines, already for introducing that the focus, or rather I would say the framework of our work in the Western Balkans, which remains a very high priority for this Commission and our Commissioner, Commissioner Gabriel, is really for the first time that we have one plan, one agenda that puts together all the different strands of work that we are busy with in the region and with the region to make sure that we are advancing on the knowledge society, on innovative society, on modern society in this region. It has a very long name because Commissioner Gabriel oversees not only research and innovation, which I represent here today, but also education, training, culture, youth, sport. And so it is really looking at all of these areas. What is interesting for us is that this list of policies, this menu of policies, allows to connect the knowledge triangle. Because here we are not just talking about scientists, we are talking about academic institutions, starting from education before it goes to higher education, tertiary education, and researchers. And it connects also to the innovation, so to entrepreneurs, to businesses. And so we bring from education to research to market where we want to be and where we want to work with this region to make sure that its economic development is also advanced through our work in education and research and innovation. what is also very, very special about this agenda, it's the first time we have an agenda that is putting together efforts of not just European Commission at the EU level, all its member states together with us in this agenda, but also all the Western Balkans, all 6 Western Balkans. So it's a joint agenda. It's not an agenda of the EU. It's a joint agenda, and everybody subscribed to it, and we launched it together last year at the heads of states level at the summit in Brdo. So we do have, I think, a galvanized attention spot what we would need to do. We have very, very tangible actions in this agenda, and we already have some results. And one of the most important, perhaps underpinning results for the moment is that all 6 Western Balkans are in associated partners in Horizon Europe. In the past framework program, Horizon 2020, 5 of the 6 were associated. For the first time, we have also Kosovo associated. So the entire region is able to participate in our flagship research innovation program on par with the member states and collaborate both within the region, but also, of course, with the EU and other associated countries of the EU in this program. So it's very important, and we already also managed to trigger substantial financial resources for innovation for the region, about 150 million euro over the next 4 years, which is, I think, about 3 times as much as we managed to do in the past period. So we have very concrete calls also launched that were ring-fenced to support development in the Western Balkans in our first work program 21-22, so 2021-22. We had a special project which was very successful under the widening part of the program, for those of you who know. And it showed the very big interest of the region, a very big interest of participants from the region and participants from outside the region to work with the Western Balkans. So we are looking now also to see how we can further advance on such kind of dedicated, targeted calls that allow really develop specifically the potential of the region. Maybe a couple of other highlights, and then I want to bring a link to Eureka and other partners and smart specialization in particular. Just before I go there, I just wanted to congratulate also the Western Balkans for having been a region that has 3 cities that have been selected in the pilot stage of the cities mission of Horizon Europe. You may know that Horizon Europe has 5 missions. These are big 5 themes on which Horizon Europe will focus interdisciplinarily. And smart, environmentally friendly cities is one of these missions. And 3 cities in the Western Balkans have been selected amongst only 112 cities in the whole of Europe and its associated countries. And so we will now hope that these cities will become shining beacons to show example also for other cities in the region, and we're looking forward to seeing them succeed. It's Sarajevo, Podgorica, and Elbasan. So now, I said this is an agenda that is not just of the Union, it's not just member states, it's also Western Balkans, but I should have mentioned that it is also an agenda to which we welcome all the regional partners and regional organizations to come together to work on it, because actions relate to a wide variety of activities undertaken by such organizations. We will hear from Sinisha in a few minutes. We will hear from COST. Everything that RCC is doing, COST is doing, Eureka is doing, feeds back into the goals of the Western Balkan agenda that we are pursuing. One of the elements in our Western Balkan agenda, and one of the priorities, is to complete the work on smart specialization strategies in the region. Partners are at a different level of maturity in these projects. Montenegro leading the pack, we congratulate them with that, but others are not far behind. Some are maybe a little bit less advanced, but everybody is on good track to make sure that smart specialization strategies are completed, and importantly, that implementation of these strategies starts. And that is where we will have to work with all of you, with regional organizations, of course, with the authorities of the Western Balkans, but also with the funding agencies, individual institutes, academic institutions, but also businesses, entrepreneurs, and donors. Because the paper, if it just remains, black and white, dead paper, it will not bring that economic growth that we're seeking to trigger through these strategies. It will require funds, it will require know-how, it will require partnerships, and it will require sustained implementation efforts. But the starting point, developing the strategies themselves, is very important, because it's meant to distill what is the competitive edge of each of the 6 Western Balkans that can help them develop new products, new models, new initiatives that do not exist, but they have intellectual capacity and edge to develop, that could actually become even a product on the market and could be sold beyond the region and even possibly beyond Europe. So we're looking at that competitive edge because, as you know, European markets and the global markets are quite saturated, and for small economies such as the Western Balkans to find that economic niche, you need to be smart. You need to find your edge, your competitive edge. So this is why it's important. It's also very important because in this process we put different actors together, trying to connect the government authorities with the academic institutions, with the stakeholders and businesses, so that this strategy is built on a real ground information with the reality check from the market, not made in offices of policy officers somewhere in the government, but really talking to the ones who produce, the ones who do research. And this is also an opportunity to create channels of cooperation, even discussion between different stakeholders that we hope will be sustained and go beyond just making the strategy, which will still be alive and used smartly at the stage of implementation and beyond. So we're very hopeful that this one of these strands of work under the agenda will be successfully completed. And in this strand of work, as already said, and I know here we are probably having in the audience policymakers, but also funding agencies and possibly entrepreneurs, companies, donors. For all of you, there will be a lot of opportunities stemming from this initiative, because once the plan is in place, once the strategy is in place and implementation needs to start, then we will need to again plug everybody into this, and there will be opportunities, also business opportunities, funding opportunities, following the advice and recommendation in that plan to make sure these recommendations, specific sectors are followed through, and they will not happen without the money. And we also know the money will not be enough. What governments alone can put and what the EU can also support, it will not be enough to implement and take the full benefit of those recommendations. So inviting everybody here to watch that space, to look at those opportunities. And of course, it's just one of the examples I wanted to highlight today, because I think that's what Eureka and RCC and others would be also paying attention. We know in the region a lot of Western Balkan authorities started also creating bodies that coordinate the work on innovation that stems directly from the smart specialization recommendations. So I think that is probably one area I would encourage everybody not to miss in the coming couple of years and work together on. I would like to stop here. I'm happy to answer if there are questions.
Thank you very much, Ruta. Well, I think first of all, this is great news when we hear that some 150 millions are available for the next few years, and what we hear is also that that might be even doubled by the national authorities. So this is definitely also a good sign for cooperation. The second thing, because you mentioned smart specialization strategies, just to give a brief overview how this already plays a role also even in Eureka. So for instance, we recently launched the Danube Call, and Montenegro is one of the countries participating in a Danube Call. So, and Montenegro already included in the call text priorities that were identified within the smart specialization strategies. So there is already a linkage here and cooperation in this direction, and you're fully right. It's not about drafting the strategies, but implementation of the strategies, what needs to be done here. So thank you very much. I would like now to go further and later on to maybe come back with a few more questions, depending on the time left. Our next speaker is Siniša Marčić, who is a senior expert on human capital development at Regional Cooperation Council. He holds a PhD in international politics from University of New South Wales, Australia. So, but he is also experienced in creating politics and also in research and innovation, as he was assistant minister for scientific and technological development in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So, Siniša, my first question, maybe briefly, because not everyone are familiar with RCC and Regional Cooperation Council. What is Regional Cooperation Council doing, and how it complements the work of the European Commission?
Ines, thank you very much for this kind introduction. And before I begin, I would like to extend my thanks to the Eureka Network for allowing me this opportunity to speak in this immensely important global event. As for the Regional Cooperation Council, we are intergovernmental political organization present in Southeast Europe. We've been established 12, 13 years ago, and most of our efforts are focusing really on the Western Balkans over the last several years. We have several strategic documents endorsed by the governments in the Western Balkans that we rely on in our line of work. One of the key ones is the Common Regional Market Action Plan. That's a strategic document endorsed by all 6 Western Balkan governments, but also, as of last year, the Green Agenda for the Western Balkans, which aims to mimic European Green Deal. Within the Common Regional Market Action Plan, we have several pillars, and basically the entire document is trying to, again, mimic the 4 freedoms of the European Union, so freedom of free movement of goods, services, capital, and people, of course. And under this document, we have several pillars, including digital transformation, investments, promotion, tourism, industrial development, mobility of people, but also what we call regional innovation area that I'm in charge of. Within the regional innovation area, we have 2 key goals. One of them is, as Ruta mentioned previously, the full integration of the Western Balkan economy, 6 Western Balkan economies into the European research area. As Ruta mentioned, all 6 Western Balkan economies are now fully associated to Horizon Europe, which is a major improvement. Over the last several years, we've seen many positive developments on that front. The numbers have skyrocketed in terms of participation of Western Balkan researchers and research organizations and businesses in a previous framework program 8, Horizon 2020. Just a couple of sort of interesting information. So funding of Western Balkan research projects has tripled since 2014. Participation of our researchers has increased by 50% since 2016. And for example, nearly 340 researchers from the region have been involved in Maria Sklodowska-Curie actions. The number of cost actions has increased significantly as well, and there was this sharp curve going upwards. since 2014. So the Western Balkans has really advanced in this field. However, many things are there to be done. The second goal of the Common Regional Market Action Plan is really to assist development and evolution of a regional innovation ecosystem. All of you involved in innovation ecosystems, both as participants, as stakeholders, or providers of various types of services, well know that this is very easy to say, but very difficult to achieve. More so when we speak about a regional innovation ecosystem that involves several economies, in particular when it comes to the Western Balkans, that has unfortunately many political sensitivities due to some violent histories in the past. However, we believe there are many things that can be done, many good and positive developments we've detected over the last several years. The innovation ecosystem is in infancy phase. However, it is also developing very rapidly. There are some front runners and some economies that are slightly lagging behind this trend. But overall, we see that many good things are happening right now in the Western Balkans. I can give you several examples. First, two more mature economies, such as North Macedonia and Serbia, that already have some instruments in place, such as innovation funds. And in Serbia, there's also a science fund as a separate instrument. In these two examples have been working in institutionalizing innovation practices for either more than a decade, such as in Serbia, or less than a decade in North Macedonia, and many fruits are already within reach. In some other cases, and I can say an example of Albania, where very few instruments, any kind of instruments, existed 5 years ago. And since the introduction of one of the European projects, EU for Innovation, the entire ecosystem in a way exploded in a positive way. Now you have many innovation infrastructures in place, various hubs, accelerators, innovation centers, etc., but many startups as well, which shows that there is a very potent creativity pool in the region. It has to be harnessed somehow. But to get there, obviously, we need many things in place. And this is what we as the Regional Cooperation Council are trying to do. We are trying to, as our name indicates, we are trying to promote cooperation within the region, but also outside the region, and obviously having the European Commission as our main partner and other international organizations. Over the last couple of years, we focused mainly on three strands. One of them is development of human capital. The other one is innovation in research infrastructures. And the third one is bringing a better options, or better possibilities for more easier and cheaper access to finance. Now, at the beginning, I mentioned that developing innovation ecosystems is complex in itself. But sometimes it's even more complex when you don't have the data to work with or to play with. So 2 years ago, 4 Western Balkan economies, for example, didn't have research infrastructure roadmaps. So they simply didn't know what kind of research infrastructures they have. We assisted in this process. So all Western Balkan 6 economies now have a clear idea of what they have in place and how they can benefit from those research infrastructure. So we kind of scaled up this effort into creating a regional research and innovation roadmap that will be published soon, hopefully in September, which proves that we are actually on the good path. You talked previously about smart specialization strategies. Montenegro and Serbia have already created these S3s. Albania and North Macedonia are nearly done. Hopefully, if everything goes okay, they will be in place by the end of this year, beginning next year. Whereas Kosovo and Bosnia and Herzegovina are kind of lagging behind. What matters in this particular case is that all these 4 strategies have certain goals, as you can imagine. And in many cases, the priority fields tend to overlap with the most sophisticated research and innovation infrastructures we have in the Western Balkans. And that's a very, very good sign. It proves that on one hand, the state or the governments understand where they want to go, but there are also infrastructures to support this. On top of this, we commissioned a parallel study to identify which scientific fields are the most popular, so to say, among the Western Balkan researchers. And this is also part of this document. And it turned out that in around 70% of cases, the most productive scientific disciplines in the Western Balkans tend to correspond with the top priorities, top economic priorities in the Western Balkans. So in a nutshell, we have two most promising industries. One of them is ICT, information and communication technologies. The other one is creative industries. On top of that, we also have food production, in particular smart and sustainable food production. Tourism, because all Western Balkan 6 economies, some more, some less, are pretty much dependent on tourism. We have energy and environment, which is very good news because we have the green agenda for the Western Balkans. And we also have metal processing and some processing industries. Coincidentally, these priorities are also priorities of the Common Regional Market Action Plan. So basically, I believe we are on a very, very good path to get the momentum going and really contribute to a more serious and sustained economic growth in the region.
Thank you.
In the past, in the past several months, we also supported capacity building of various target groups, so to say, around the Western Balkans, including technology transfer officers, digital innovation hubs, national contact points in research innovation as the key bridges between research and business community on one hand and available opportunities offered by the European Union and other organizations.
Thank you, Siniša. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have to look on the watch. Maybe one thing I would like you maybe to mention, because I think it's relevant. We in Eureka and potential partners throughout Eureka member countries are interested in the potential that is there in the region. So interested, in companies and what is offered there and how to match make with them, so to say. And you have started this initiative with Butterfly Innovation Event. So I think this would be something that might be very interesting for the partners we have in Europe. Maybe you already have some data for the next event. Maybe you could promote this a bit in a chat if you have more information, or in this registration tool, Hava. Sorry, Vrova, and to put this information there. But maybe you can say just 2 sentences quickly related to Butterfly Innovation Event.
Thank you, Ines. One of the activities of the RCC is to heavily promote innovation culture in the Western Balkans. That's why last year we established the regional Butterfly Innovation and Business Forum, which aims to promote innovative teams, innovative ideas from different maturity levels from around the Western Balkans. Last time in December, we had around 30 participants explaining what they've done so far, and this event went really, really well. The next one is going to be in the second half of November. We aim to partner again with the Enterprise Europe Network and perhaps another organization. I can't say more details right now, but I also encourage Eureka Network, Cost Association, European Institute of Innovation Technology, and other relevant agencies to join on board, because we believe this is the best way to get things going. People need to see that good practices exist out there. People need to see that examples of successful companies, small and large alike, exist out there, and they need to get this encouragement boost. They need to see that some people have done it despite all odds. And there are companies that fare really, really well around the Western Balkans. but most of them are below the radar, and this is the main purpose of the Butterfly Innovation Business Forum. On top of that, and I will close with this, we also inaugurated the Regional Butterfly Innovation Award. The 6 winners in 6 categories will be announced next Monday in Tirana during the ministerial meeting on research, innovation, culture and education. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sinisha. Very interesting information, and we are looking forward to hear also about that results. So now I would like to give the floor back to Rita.
Thank you so much, Inish. So now that we have had the scenario set up on what were the main achievements on research and innovation cooperation with the Western Balkans region, it's also important to know that we still have several challenges ahead of us. But we would like now to move on to another very important step that needs to be taken within this matter of cooperation with the Western Balkans, which is we noticed during our work within the working group that there is a lack of awareness on the several opportunities that exist for the countries to engage in and to be funded, and eventually in the future to step into innovation cooperation projects. So one of the actions we took was to start a meeting with other research and innovation cooperation networks, and we met with, discussed with the EIT and also with COST. COST is one of our invitees, our guests here. We have Peter Weiss with us from COST Association. He will be speaking on what are the main actions that have been taking place and the relevance of the participation of the Western Balkan region in the COST actions. And moving on, we would like to give the stage then later to Wolfgang Witka. He's he's an advisor, a senior advisor for the Eureka Director General. And we will be introducing an idea that we have to implement a pilot project together with COST, where we hope to be able to promote new Eureka projects in the future, coming from COST actions. So I give the floor to Bart to introduce COST. Please, Bart, go ahead.
Thank you, and good to be here. Thank you for Eureka for the invitation. I brought some slides. I thought that might help with the attention span at the last part of the event. So I'm going to run through the slides and explain what COST is and how the Western Balkan is engaged in the COST activities. It's also good to hear from the previous speakers that we were recognized as one of, let's say, the building blocks in promoting and spreading, let's say, the excellence which is present in the region and bridge them towards other players and academic and of course other institutions in Europe in terms of research and innovation. Let's see if my pointer... Voila, it works, great. So COST is the European Cooperation in Science and Technology, but maybe first a question to the room. Who has heard about COST before this meeting? Okay, quite some people. How well do you know it in detail? Is it? Okay, a little bit. Okay, that's good, because now you will learn something new. So COST is the European Cooperation in Science and Technology, and we fund research networking. So we do not fund the research itself. We do not fund, let's say, big infrastructures, or we do not pay people, but we pay for the networking of researchers. So you are able then to meet your peers within our COST actions. For the moment, we have around 300 COST actions running. So these are 300 networks of people who get together and work on a specific topic. Every COST action has around 30 countries involved, and an average from 150, let's say, to even 300 researchers who work together on a topic. A COST action runs for 4 years and can be on any any topic. So that's one of the things which is mentioned on the slides. It's completely bottom-up. So we have a bottom-up call for proposals. You submit your idea, and then this is evaluated by independent experts via several steps. It's open for all partners. I have to say that 85 to 90% of our participants are academia, but around 10% is non-academia, and then mainly these are SMEs, but also bigger companies. They can also join the networking activities. And it's in all fields of science and technology, and I said, and all career stages. So we are very much welcoming people which are at the beginning of their career, because it's really, let's say, very good for your network and for your connection. If you're, as a young researcher, part of a European network, you meet people within your science field, which you maybe have only heard of from publications or papers, but these cost actions really give you a flavor and a taste of really to work with them together in very concrete projects. It's all countries, everyone around the globe actually can join, but we have 40 cost members. I think that's also on my next slide. But every researcher from also outside those 40 members can join cost. Of course, they are not reimbursed, so we do not pay their participation, but you can participate within the networks and get the advantage of the networks. And that's what I heard quite a lot here today in several panels. The importance of international networking, of international connections to take science and research forward. So this is really what COST is all about. It's to meet and to connect with researchers across the world. So this is the COST membership, 40 members. We recently added Georgia and Ukraine to our membership. Well, it was decided by a board, of course. We didn't do it ourselves, but they are now welcome in the COST family. And you see here the typical distinction made in European R&I policies between the purple and the green countries, which are the research intense, and the less research intense countries, the so-called widening countries. We have typically COST jargon for this, the inclusiveness target countries. While connecting researchers from both, let's say, sides of Europe, we try to take, let's say, the whole continent forward. And this is interestingly shown in this slide. So on the green, you see the absolute number of participants in COST actions, and you see, of course, that the bigger countries have, of course, larger participations in COST actions. You see Spain, Germany, Italy, the UK. And that's very easy to explain because the research population is bigger. They have researchers in all fields of science and technology, and therefore those countries participate in almost all countries with a wide variety of researchers. But if you look at the blue map, you see, let's say, the participation in COST actions relative to the size of the research community. And there you see a big strength, a big dark, it's not pointing, but a darker blue, specifically in the Western Balkan countries, also in the Baltic states. That means that a larger share of researchers participate in COST actions if you compare it to, let's say, the total community. We have countries in the Western Balkans of which 25 to 30% of researchers, so of all researchers, participate in COST actions. So this is something we are very proud of. We have investigated a lot of time and effort to get COST well known in the research community over there, with a lot of info days, information sessions, collaborations with universities and so on. But this has paid off. These are figures, I think, of 2021. And we have seen, also said by the previous speaker, an increase over the years as it is now. So this is, I think, an interesting slide to have a focus on. So what is actually funded by COST? It's, so as I said, networking activities within the COST actions. So it's meetings, workshops, conferences, it's training schools, it's short-term mobility missions, so where researchers go to another lab, to another university for a short amount of time. It's dissemination activities, it's virtual networking grants, which we also launched very recently, in actually when the pandemic started. We had to rethink a bit, of course, our business model. Now it's back to normal, I would say, but these virtual networking grants are still there. So every COST action, which goes on a wide variety of topics, it's health sciences, natural sciences, it's mobility, it's energy, have these networking instruments available. So they use these instruments to meet and to connect and to work on specific topics within the science and technology fields. outside of the circle, you see, let's say, the add-on activities we fund from the Cost Association ourselves. So we are based in Brussels. We are an integral part and completely funded by Horizon Europe. And we, of course, manage the cost actions, but we also organize add-on activities. We have a cost academy to train young researchers on, let's say, research management, on leadership skills, on how to communicate your science, how to engage with policymakers, and so on. So if you're part of a cost action, you do not only meet people within your action, you also get training on how to let's say, to advance your skills in international R&I collaboration. We have a focus on cost science and foreign policy advice. We have memorandums of understanding with the JRC, with the EIT, also with European Parliament Research Service. We work together where they use the big pool of cost action researchers. So we have a yearly participation of more than 45,000 researchers in our cost actions. They use the pool in order to develop, let's say, their processes on science and foreign policy advice. If, for example, the JRC needs a specific expertise, then they come to us and let's see, do we have researchers, do we have actions working on these topics? Can we do something? Do we organize an event, or do you help with our publication? So that's to make it concrete. So that's something we focus on. Also global networking. We try to be visible also outside of the EU. This is not easy, but we try to do that. This also, for example, goes via Eurexis, who has let's say, international networking or information days where we then participate with speaking slots. We have the Cost Connect events, which connects researchers within cost actions with policymakers, stakeholders. And also importantly, and maybe the most important thing for this session, is the Cost Innovators grant. This is an add-on grant, which we have piloted in the beginning of 2020, so just when the pandemic started. I'm not sure if we can already get, let's say, the full benefits of this, but this is an add-on grant for cost actions who have innovation potential. So a cost action runs for 4 years. If they think after the 4 years, okay, we can do more in terms of innovation, we will have an additional year of funding where they need to focus on bringing their processes or their products closer, or the things they work on closer to the market. It's the time they get to develop, for example, a business plan, to find partners, to set up structures which would then in the long term lead to more innovations coming out of these cost actions. We have piloted, the big impact is not there yet, but there's definitely something interesting which we will fund in the future. There's budget for that, and yeah, I think this is also one of the discussion points of this meeting, how we can collaborate with the Eureka projects in the long term. A few more slides then on the Western Balkan participants in running actions. Here you see clearly how this went up. As of 2014, these are participants which are being reimbursed by the cost action. It stops in 2019 because then in 2020 there was little reimbursement, but there was a lot of activity ongoing, that's for sure. And numbers are, in terms of participation, are still increasing. So that's something we're proud of. And then you see here the engagement of the Western Balkan countries in running actions. And you see, for example, that a country such as Serbia is active in more than 90% of the cost actions, so around 300 actions, and Serbia is active in more than 90%. I think Bosnia-Herzegovina is reaching towards 80%, if I read the scale correctly. So it's quite an intense participation of researchers and innovators from the Western Balkan countries in cost action. Kosovo, which is a near neighbor country in the cost terminology, participates in 32 running cost actions. That's because, of course, the research population is smaller, but they're still active in 32 actions. And of course, what do you expect from a cost action? What do we want to get out of it? We have, let's say, 3 impact pillars. The first one is, of course, scientific and societal impact, which goes in all directions. As you are familiar with R&I projects, this can be anything. It can be standards, it can be breakthroughs, it can be new collaborations, and so on, applications, products, etc. Then the second impact is the research careers. So 95% of researchers which participate in cost actions have indicated that their participation has advanced their career. So we track, of course, what we do, and we do quite intense survey on the participants of cost actions, and this is a number we're very proud of. So, and this is something you can, I think, imagine yourself if you are a young researcher and you end up in a network of people and researchers who work on similar topics, you immediately in 4 years' time have a very big address book with all contacts. Well, not everyone across Europe. Okay, I have to be short in time, but. Oh, I forgot what I wanted to say, but you get my point. And then last one is the follow-up funding. So Horizon 2020 reported so a success rate of 37% of proposals spinning off from cost actions. And this is also something which is, I think, clear. If you know who to trust and you know how to work with and you're part of a cost action and you look at future funding, you easily apply and your chances of success are, of course, bigger, if I can say that. But that's how it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bart. So continuing with this logic of creating synergies between research networks and cooperation, we would like now to move on to introducing an idea that came up after discussing with you, that could actually be an improvement and a promotion of future innovation projects with the engagement of Western Balkan countries, using the flexible instruments of Eureka. This is the key. So I will pass the word to Wolfgang to introduce this idea.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. I will try to be, we are running short in time, but I will try to be very brief and concrete on what one could do, and I think where the network, the Eureka network together with COST has probably a possibility to develop some concrete steps for cooperation. I would highlight 3 points in my intervention. 1 is state of play, where we are really. 2, where we find synergies, and 3, what can we do practically to generate projects, because project generation is what makes Eureka, and in particular, in this case, we are talking about network projects, the one of the instruments. So state of play, where are we today? So it is important to understand that the Western Balkans, not Kosovo, but the Western Balkans are now full members of Eureka, which means if they want to generate projects, they need to fund their projects and they need to generate them. What does it mean? They need to have funding bodies which are promoting topics, which are, first of all, providing funds. Secondly, promoting ideas, finding actors who are generating projects. And thirdly, find other partners in other Eureka member countries to make this project a reality. This is quite a long way, and this is not easy to do, as most of the Eureka funding bodies know. And we have clearly seen that the Western Balkan countries have difficulties in this process. So how can we help them on that journey to these projects? So where do we find, and this is my second point, the synergies that we need on this journey for these funding bodies from the Western Balkan to support industry towards projects? First synergy is with the COST network itself, where we have seen, and this is an interesting information that you did bring to us about today, is where we have seen that there is a very high ratio between research organizations involved in cost actions in the area compared to the stakeholders in research in general. So these were our dark blue countries that we could see. So there is a research community which is well connected to the rest of COST members, which are similar to Eureka members, or the rest of Europe and in the region. So we can build clearly on this synergy. And the second point is that we build on synergies with the Regional Cooperation Council. So Sinisha is one of our members in the working group, and we build on synergies with what the European Commission DG RTD is doing. So thanks to Sinisha, and especially also to Bernard Fabianek and Niki Naska, which are in our working group since the beginning. So I come to my third point. How can we now turn this practically into projects? So the idea is to organize something that we have called in a non-paper brokerage events, whatever, workshops, where we present cost actions. And these cost actions involve Western Balkan research performers, which are successful, which are maybe close to technology, which are close to certain applications, which may build on innovator grants, and where maybe these research performers in this cost action from the Western Balkans have also ideas who could be even in their region, so in the Western Balkan region, potential industrial or SME partners who could exploit their ideas. This is one of the starting points. Then we would, in addition, start to make such a screening jointly. In addition, use, of course, the smart specialization ideas which exist, those plans which are relatively advanced and established, and see if there is a match of priorities, which would make it also very attractive for the public authorities in the Western Balkans to support these potential ideas for projects and further exploitation. And finally, we would present this to the national funding bodies from the Western Balkans and present it at the same time to national funding bodies from the whole Eureka network, those which are interested, and to see where a match between both sides can be made and where potential projects could be born out of these cost action. And this would also allow, in particular, to see for the national funding bodies from the Western Balkans how this project generation, jointly with other countries, can be fostered. This is the first idea. This is maybe a support tool. We would like to try to test this out and to see if we can support this complex process of project generation with providing funding, promoting ideas, finding partners in the country, and then even in other Eureka countries. This is my part of the contribution to building on what COST has done, and I think with our partnership, also with the Commission and the Regional Cooperation Council, we can have some concrete outcomes out of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Wolfgang. So this is the challenge that we live here. I don't know if from the audience we have any interventions, any comments that you would like to make. We will, of course, continue launching and working upon this pilot action together with COST, and also coordinating with our colleagues from the working group. So I would like to open the floor if there is any comment from the audience or from yourselves, from the speakers. We are actually okay. Yeah, Christian, go ahead, and then Shiniza.
Without the microphone.
No, you have to have the microphone.
Question regarding cost. So I think you're really successful, and we're also promoting costs on our premises at FFG. So and the figures you brought, they were quite impressive. So where do they really come from? So do we know a kind of structure of, is it collaborative projects? Is it people that are going to universities? Can you name some of the backgrounds on that? On which figures? You mentioned that after the cost actions,
the follow-up funding, you mean?
Follow-up funding was more than 300 million. So, and I would be interested in which categories they fall, or where they come out.
Yeah, Horizon 2020 funding. So we ask our cost actions, look, what have you done in the 4 years? Of course, they need to produce a report, they get a rapporteur. And also a part of that report is focusing on, did you apply to additional funding? Did you apply to Horizon 2020 projects, of which the core, it was based in your cost action? And then they say, yes, we applied for these projects and so many were successful. And we see in terms of proposals that 37% of these proposals coming from cost actions is funded. And that leads to a certain figure. I think Horizon 2020, there was 2.6 billion of projects which were granted to initiatives or projects which came out of cost actions. Of course, this is a number which is not completely to the euro justifiable, but this is an idea of how cost is really bringing communities together, which then go further. We have called ourselves, let's say, the pre-portal to the era, because many of our researchers are younger researchers at the beginning of their careers, and then cost action is for most of them, let's say, a first step towards, let's say, the bigger R&I projects. Yeah.
And then a follow-up question to that. So how strong are the ties to Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions and so on? Because they seem on the first view quite similar, but they are not, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, the Horizon 2020 follow-up funding goes in different directions. Part of it is, of course, are the Marie Curie actions. I cannot give specific details, but we have them if you would be interested, and we can follow up later. We also see a big synergy with ERC around, on average, depends on which grant, but 1 out of 5 ERC grants is active in a cost action. So these also shows the links between the different programs. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's Sinisa first, and then we can give you the floor. Sinisa, please go ahead.
Rita, thank you very much. Truly interesting discussion. I'm very pleased to hear that both Cost Association and Eureka are starting to pilot some activities in the Western Balkans. I believe that's going to be immensely useful around here. I also know that some of you have been discussing with European Institute of Innovation Technology, EIT, and some KICs. And I think this is where the true treasure hides. In the past, there were many missing links around the Western Balkans, at least when it comes to research and innovation. As I said at the beginning, our innovation ecosystem is really small. It's in very early stages. And many people around here, both researchers, businesses, and innovators, are very frequently unaware of existing opportunities. And I believe this could be an immensely important link that could bridge this gap in the future. For example, if COST and Eureka really successfully implement this pilot action, and then other organizations join on board as well to complement each other, I think this could be really, really useful. I'm happy that our Western Balkans Innovation Research Platform meetings actually are bearing fruit already. Thank you.
Okay. Well. I'm Katarina from the Macedonian Innovation Fund, and my question is directed towards the representatives of the Eureka Working Group. Is there any chance of involving innovation agencies in a sort of stakeholder consultation process regarding your action plan? Because I know that in North Macedonia there is an ongoing process of smart specialization, the actual writing of the smart specialization strategy, and we would appreciate if we have more information regarding your plans, your future plans, so we can, yes, sort of incorporate and create synergies between our national actions, the actions of the other European institutions such as the EIT, and our national institutions. And we're also in the process of revising the legislative, because currently we do have regulative limitation regarding co-funding of similar actions. So I think that now it's a very good momentum for having some sort of two-way communication in a manner that we sort of design this approach together. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this question. I'm very pleased and I'm extremely happy to hear that, because we know that Innovation Fund in Macedonia is very good, very famous already in the region. The problems are elsewhere. As you said, it's the regulatory, also related to Eureka. That's, for instance, the ministry who is in charge was involved from the very beginning, was invited to all meetings. Unfortunately, they did not participate. And this is very pity because there is a lot of potential in Macedonia, and as I heard you, Innovation Fund as an actor, we would be very pleased to welcome you. However, I think, of course, in Macedonia, since the ministry is the legal actor, let's say, you will have also to discuss this topic with the ministry. But on the other hand, we are very happy to facilitate this process and to see how to proceed. Because I think it would be really interesting to have Macedonia in one of the upcoming calls, the Eureka calls. As far as I remember, I think the last few years there were no projects with Macedonian partners, but before, Macedonian partners were extremely successful. So this is really pity, and I'm extremely happy to hear this interest and to involve this agency. So please, let's stay in touch and to involve you in the future work. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. We really need to close the workshop as the closing session of Global Innovation Summit is taking place. So I would just like to thank you very much to our guests, to Shiniza, to Huta. Thank you so much for your presentation, to Bart from COST. And do engage with the working group. Please, North Macedonia, you're very welcome. And we are very happy to hear from you. And we will continue developing this pilot action together with COST and keep on creating synergies between our programs, Eureka, and our networks. So thank you so much to everyone, and hope to speak to you soon, to see you soon. Thank you. Round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.